session, we have seen that Personage team has given excellent webinars, and soon they will also be available to you for watching afterwards also. So from your LMS or on the Personage page, you will be able to see the recordings as well. And there had been many such topics which were highly helpful for all of us. I would include myself also because I have learned many new things from Hanspreet and other facilitators. And these would be quite useful throughout our journey, our career, our future, and that will be made on the basis of what choices we make for ourselves and how we tackle the interviews over there. Okay, so over to you, Hanspreet. Please go ahead and let our students know few more good things from you, and then it will help them. All
Sure.
right,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. So, hi everybody. Welcome to another session. And since ma'am has already mentioned this is the last session. Now, in the previous sessions, I have tackled a lot of interview doubts and a lot of questions that I thought were relevant. And we also delved deep into your resume building, how to build an effective AI based resume that you can take help from, but also to make it ATS friendly, right? So we've done a lot, and there's not much that we can discuss. I have a few slides ready that I would like to discuss, and we can just go forward with it. But in the meanwhile, I would also urge you all to put in any kinds of questions that you have regarding interviews or resume building so that we can take it up today, and I'll be able to take as many questions that I can. And of course, if time allows, we can do some more mock interviews if you would like that. So, since we've already discussed a lot of essentials and basics, and we've discussed a lot of interview frequently asked questions, today I would just want to touch a little bit upon um, some grooming etiquette, which is extremely important when you're going in for the interview. So I've just mentioned a few pointers here, which I would like to talk about very briefly. Now, I know a lot of you already know this, but it's very important to reiterate these things because we tend to forget, and we need to make sure that, we are following these basic ground rules, because the way you look, the way you present yourself also matters a lot in an interview. If you're looking shabby, if you're not well groomed, that could probably leave a very bad impression about you. So when it comes to clothes, of course, I would suggest you should definitely go for formals. If you want to go for Western formals, wear something which is nice, comfortable, breezy, because it's really hot. So if it's summertime, wear something breezy, but also formal. Don't wear very thick synthetic material, otherwise you'll end up keep sweating, and then that can give a very bad impression. And for girls, if you want to wear formals, go ahead. Again, light, breezy, comfortable. Otherwise, you can also go for Indian. Wear some nice, Indian kurtis with plazos, and just make sure that you're very comfortable in whatever you're wearing. That's very important, because especially when you end up wearing new clothes, or you're wearing something which is, not of a great material, it's itchy, your mind is usually distracted by those external factors, and that's not what we want, right? Our focus should be on the interview, our focus should be on the questions. So these external factors, your presence in yourself should be so comfortable and so comforting that these things should not really matter to you, right? Now, when it comes to footwear, again, for boys, it goes formal shoes, right? And for girls, if you're wearing Indian, you can wear some juttis or some slippers. I would prefer if you would wear closed footwear, because that's usually better in a formal setup. You can also wear formal shoes. There are a lot of girls' formal shoes also these days. I'm suggesting that because personally I prefer that. I feel it's very, very comfortable, and again, you're not distracted. In flats, what usually happens is when you're wearing Western formals, you usually end up wearing heels, be it this much or this much, right? So, firstly, if you really want to wear heels, just don't go all out with your heels. Make sure it's small. Make sure it's block heels or wedgies instead of wearing pencil heels. The point is for you to be comfortable, for you to be confident. If you think you're very confident in heels, you can go ahead. But to avoid things like underconfidence, and to avoid things like shoe bites and distractions, to avoid all of that, again, I come back to the same point. Being comfortable is important. Of course, you have to look presentable, but you have to find a blend between looking presentable and being comfortable. When it comes to jewelry, keep it extremely minimal. Wear small studs or small earrings, or if you're wearing Indian, wear small jhumkis, nothing which looks very flashy, because the focus should be on you, the way you're speaking, not on any flashy things that might come with you. So avoid that. A simple watch is good for your wrist, or a bracelet if you want. For guys, watch is great, it works. When it comes to makeup, keep it very subtle. You want to look very simple and subtle. Don't go overboard. Don't put a lot of color on your face. Don't go for very dark colors. um don't overdo your eyes. Just keep it as simple and minimal as you can if you want to do that. Then, when it comes to fragrance, it's extremely important to smell good, right? Because honestly, that also impacts and leads to an impression. So that becomes an extremely crucial part. Now, why I'm focusing upon this is because every human being is different, right? A lot of people sweat a lot. A lot of people don't sweat at all, right? Especially when it's summers, it can get a little tacky and problematic if you have body odor issues and it's extremely hot and you're just sweating. So I'd say just find out ways to, deal with it in a better manner. I would personally suggest always carry roll-on deodorants with you. They work really well if you think you have body odor issues. Always keep a pocket deodorant or a perfume with you. And again, when I talk about all of this, it's also important that you don't go all out with your fragrance as well. So that doesn't mean you're just spraying the perfume all over yourself, that you enter the room and the first thing that everybody notices is that you have a very strong perfume. So make sure it's light, it's nice, it's breezy. The point is that you should smell pleasant, or you should, there should not be a very evident smell at all in the room, right? So that's very important, because even when you get into the job industry or the corporate world, that matters. If you're going for meetings, if you're meeting people, if you're if you're in an office space, all of these things are a part of basic etiquette grooming, and it's extremely crucial to take care of all of this. Then when it comes to hair, make sure they are very neatly done. For guys, it should be neat. There should be no, fancy hairstyles at all. When it comes to girls, again, nothing very fancy. If you have a haircut where your hair is, constantly coming on your face, prefer tying it up. So make sure you're looking very neat and tidy. Your face should be fully visible. Your hair should not keep coming on your face. It should not cause a distraction. So to boil it all down, when it comes to clothes, or we also call it sartorial sense, footwear, jewelry, makeup, fragrance here, these are just a few pointers that I wanted to mention. So make sure that all of this is in a parameter, or is in a way that you're comfortable, you are not distracted by any of these factors, and neither is the interviewer distracted. So you would be distracted if you're uncomfortable in something, right? Or maybe if hair is falling on your face, and the interviewer can also be distracted if you wear something flashy, right? Like if you have big flashy jhumkas, or if you have some flashy makeup on, or if you have some hair coming on your face. So make sure that it's not distracting for you and also for the interviewer. The point is to look presentable, to show in that you have a strong personality and you know how to carry yourself and you're neat and tidy, but without being too flashy. So that's something that I just wanted to touch base upon. Now, I'll stop for a minute, and I would want you all to ask questions. If you don't have questions, I can discuss two more interview FAQs. Then we can go to mock interviews. But I would like to take a minute to, just um, for you all to actually start typing in questions if you have any, so that I can address it. And then we can, jump back to what I have next. Okay, no questions. Nobody has any questions as of now? Okay. So again, if you have questions in the middle of, me speaking, just put it out there. I will address it once I'm done speaking. So let's move ahead and discuss one more interview FAQ, which I think some of you also mentioned last time, which is why should we hire you? Okay. Now this does become important. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So this does become important, right? Because the companies or the organizations coming in might ask you, right? That why you? Why is it that we should hire you, right? So again, here also the important thing to be kept in mind is that you should avoid cliches like, because I want this job, I am a hard worker, I saw your ad somewhere, so I thought why not apply, right? Because these are not the answers they're looking for. They want to see you're passionate, you're enthusiastic, and you really want to make a difference and contribute to the organization that you're applying to. So rather, you should focus on the job description. Again, I think in the previous three sessions, I have constantly repeated the same thing, that the job description is extremely crucial. Be it you wanting to create a resume for that particular organization, or you sitting for an interview. Now, why is it important? Let me reiterate and get into that part a bit, right? So, the job description talks about what all is the interviewer or the organization looking for in the candidate, right? So when it comes to resume, we talked about ATS friendly resumes and how keywords are very important. That's when you have to pick up at least, so according to Austin Belkac's analysis that we discussed, if some of you remember, he said that according to his analysis, there should be 53 keywords from your job description in your resume, right? But we discussed that might be a little too much. So the point here is that you should go through the job description thoroughly, try to find out the skills that they are trying to look for in the candidate, and try to fit in those keywords somewhere on your resume. Okay. Now, when it comes to interviews, job description, reading it thoroughly is extremely important. Why? Because you can actually utilize that in a lot of questions that they might ask you. If they ask you, tell me something about yourself, we discussed that you should also mention your short and long term goals towards the end, because it's a tricky question and they really want to know more about what your future plans are, or are you looking forward to something, or are you just laid back, right? So when you're talking about your short term or long term goals, you can slyly do things like using a few skills that they think they need in a candidate, which were mentioned in the job description, into blending in with your answer and mentioning that, right? Or if they ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 days? Again, when you put in an amalgamation of all the keywords or the skills that they were looking for, you can answer that question well, right? If they ask you your strengths and weaknesses, now you will know what all are they looking for. So if you feel that your one of your weaknesses is something which is mentioned in the job description, what you can do is you can avoid mentioning that as your weakness, because if you have not read the job description, right, you can there's a tendency or there's a chance that you might end up saying a weakness which is something that they need in the candidate, and that will again put you down in the list of being um a prospective employee for their organization, right? So when you know the job description by heart, when you know what they're looking for, you can tailor make your answers according to what they're looking for, right? So that's why it becomes very important. Similarly, when they say, why should we hire you? Your focus should be on the job description, because you have to give them an answer with a blend of skills, mentioning that they will feel like you have all the skills that they require for the position that you're applying for, right? Second is sell yourself, which is very important. Frame your answer in a manner in which you are basically selling yourself. When I say sell yourself, you're selling your capabilities, your skills, your personality in a way that the organization thinks that, you're the right candidate or you're the right fit, right? So when we are selling an object in general, right? When we're selling a product in general, what we do is we talk about what all it can do, right? We don't talk about things it can't do. We talk about things it can do, how wonderful it is, right? So that's exactly what you have to do in context of your interviewer's requirement or the recruiter's requirement. When taking into consideration what they want, you are framing an answer mentioning your skills that makes you the right fit. You actually end up framing the best answer or the most appropriate answer for why should we hire you. Okay, now I have two sample answers that I've collected for you, so let's just quickly have a look at that, right? So if you're an experienced candidate, so I figured out in the past few sessions that some people do come with experience also over here. Some are freshers, some are not freshers, right? So if you have experience, right, you can say something like, With my 7 years of experience working with financial databases, I have saved companies thousands of dollars by streamlining systems. My high energy and quick learning style enables me to hit the ground running and rapidly size up problems. I have the ability to stay focused in stressful situations and can be counted on when the going gets tough. I know I would be a great addition to your team. Now, let's just break this down, okay? Is my screen okay now? I'm sorry, I did not zoom it in. I think it should be good now. Okay. So let's have a look at, what are the key elements here that we have to have a look at. So the person started with mentioning the amount of experience they have, right? So when you're mentioning the number of years of experience you have, that anyway shows credibility of you being in that particular field, right? Then there is, or there are words like high energy, quick learning style, rapidly size up problems, ability to stay focused in stressful situations, right? So if you see, all these are main skills and keywords that the candidate is trying to put in into his or her answer to showcase that he or her has those skills which probably were mentioned in the job description, or which probably are something that they're sure of that the recruiter is looking for, right? So what they've done is they've mentioned their experience, which builds credibility, and they have put in a blend of words or skills that they possess, which they know that the recruiter is looking for, right? When it comes to being a fresher, I have always been skilled at communication. In college, I was an excellent orator and made a lot of friends. Even though I don't have work experience in the field of digital marketing, I'm confident that I can learn quickly and become an asset to this company. I'm hardworking and a quick learner, so I'm confident that I can easily adapt to any situation. I also have a good understanding of processes, so I'm confident that I can perform well as a digital marketing executive. Overall, I believe that my skills and abilities make me well suited for the position of digital marketing executive. Now, a lot of people usually worry about answering this question when you're a fresher, right? So it's not that difficult, honestly, right? Because even if you do not have some credible work experience, or you just have internships, or maybe you don't have some, you have to showcase all the skills that they're looking for. And again, it boils down to where will you find those skills in the job description, right? So the person is mentioning, if they talk about their communication skills, this could be used for a lot of fields, not just digital marketing. Maybe if somebody wants to be a trainer, a communicator, a journalist, you can pick up a few words from the similar answer, right? So let's break this down. I have always been skilled at communication, which means the person is trying to say that they have always been good at communication and they've built upon that skill over the past years in their school and college days. I was an excellent orator and made a lot of friends. So they are telling that they were an excellent orator, which means they might have participated in a lot of activities which required anchoring or orating. And they're substantiating this argument by saying that they have also made a lot of friends, right? Which tells a lot about their personality. Even though I don't have work experience in the field, I am confident that I can learn quickly and become an asset to any company. So a quick learner is something that they're trying to prove that they are. They are hardworking and a quick learner. They are confident, and I can easily adapt to any situation, which means that they have the soft skill or the skill of adaptability also. I also have a good understanding of processes. Now, here they're moving a little bit to the hard skills section to try to show that even though they don't have work experience, they do possess these skills, right? So, I am confident that I can perform well. They are confident, right, that they can perform well. And overall, they believe that their skills and abilities will make them well suited for this position, right? So, if you're a fresher, if you're not a fresher, it doesn't matter. It's not difficult to answer these questions. If you are not a fresher, you can start off by building credibility by mentioning the amount of experience you have, and then putting in an amalgamation of your soft and hard skills in order to try to prove them that you're the right fit for the company. If you're a fresher, again, go through the job description thoroughly. Look for skills that the recruiter is looking for. Do some intensive research on the organization and on the job position in general too. Apart from the job description, do some general research too. Try to find out the skills, both soft and hard, that they're trying to find, and relate it to little instances or stories of how you have eventually built these skills or upskilled yourself on these skills in the past during your school and college days, and that will work well for you. Okay. So, do we have any questions here? Okay. So, there's a question I can see. What do we reply when they say that you're overqualified or underqualified for this job? Okay. So let's just tackle this in a simple manner. Okay. Let's start with underqualified because we were just discussing the example of a fresher, right? Now, this usually might happen if you're a fresher or if you don't have work experience, right? They might say that you're underqualified. The point here is that you need to believe in yourself that you're not underqualified. And how will that belief come in if you think you have built upon those skills in the past few years? Okay. So if you think that you are good at communication skills, but you don't have relevant work experience, it doesn't matter. As long as you believe in yourself and you can prove it to them, right? It's all that matters. So you can answer, by substantiating your argument by something like giving out experiences that I have always been skilled at communication. I was I was an excellent orator and I have never had a problem with talking to people. I have great interpersonal skills. I understand that I do not have the relevant work experience that you're looking for, but because of the things that I have participated in my college days or school days, and mention a few examples, and the fact that I have always worked great under short deadlines, or I have always given in my 100% and I am a quick learner. So just combine the skills and give relevant examples on how you have actually worked towards those skills in the past, despite not having work experience, probably in some college events, right? A lot of you participate in a lot of extracurriculars during college, right? So those could be relevant examples. Now, the star method that we talked about can also be used here. Star referred to what you using a story or weaving a story using the star method, which would mean you mentioning situation, task, action, and result, right? So blend in the star method also right here if you want to, and try to give an example. For example, say something like that during my college days, I was given an opportunity to be an orator at a national level MUN that my college was organizing, and the person that they had hired had quit or they couldn't turn up last moment, and I was asked that if I could do so. So I had to prepare the script. I had to deliver. I had to do the anchoring. I had to make the script, and I had to do it in front of about 500 or 700 people, right? So this is the perfect example of how, despite the fact that I was given a task at the last moment, I believed in myself. I worked well under pressure and I was able to deliver a great speech, or I was able to speak really well, right? So, substantiate your argument in a way to make sure that you're able to prove them that even if you're underqualified, or if you don't have relevant experience, you can still do that, right? And when it comes to literal qualifications, again, what's important is if you really think for yourself, if you're sitting for some interviews and you think that you might not have the right amount of qualifications for that, if you think that there are any courses that you can do to upskill yourself, there are so many online courses available. Try doing that, and then it becomes a little easier when you're sitting in the interview to be able to show them that I understand that I was underqualified, but I have really researched, worked upon myself. I am aware with the industry standards, and I have done these in these courses, which have given me great insights into the industry. And I think that I will be able to manage it really well. When it comes to being overqualified, I don't think that usually happens, but if you think that does, you need to know your reason, right? If you yourself think that you're overqualified for a particular job, then why are you sitting for that interview? You need to ask that question to yourself before you actually go in for the interview. So I'm sure if the person is asking you this question somewhere, down the line, you also know that maybe you might be a little overqualified. But if you're somebody who is really looking for some particular experience at that particular time, you can just tell it to them. So there might be a reason you want to do that job. There's something that the job offers that you want to gain hands-on experience in. So mention that, and you can just end your answer with that. Okay. I don't see any other questions, so let's just move to the next part. Now, I'll discuss two very interesting techniques, okay? Now, this is just an example. Here we are getting a little into time management, okay? But it is also helpful if you're in your workplace, if you want to manage your personal tasks, or if there's an interview FAQ somewhere along the line of how do you stay organized, okay? Now, companies might ask you that we work on multiple projects or multiple tasks at the same time. It can get a little overwhelming sometimes. How do you plan to stay organized? Okay. Now, there are two things that you can choose here. The first one is the time box technique, and the second one is the Eisenhower matrix. Okay. Now, let's look at what the time box technique is. So, ignore the image on the right because that's Eisenhower matrix. But when it comes to time box technique, it's basically a technique which people follow to make sure that they're finishing their tasks on time. Okay. So I'll explain the concept first and then we'll delve deep into how you can answer these. So basically, for example, if you have 10 tasks today, okay, just allot realistic times to each task. Ki you think, this will take 1 hour, this might take 2 hours, this might take 30 minutes. Keep a little buffer also of about 10 to 15 minutes to be on the safe side, but just give yourself time to finish those tasks. Okay, so what happens is you're basically boxing your tasks into time. Now your focus here is not on the task, it's on the time. This is a technique which can come in handy at a lot of managerial level positions, especially. Why? Because at that point you're so accustomed to doing that job that that your productivity or your output would not be affected, right? Now if you're fresher and you're trying to do this in an organization, it might not give the best results. Why? Because you're focusing on the task, and as soon as your time is up you move on to the next task, right? Which means that maybe your you've not given your 100% in the first task, or maybe your output or efficiency wasn't that great. But when people keep getting promoted and they have relevant years of experience, what happens is the tasks usually come naturally to them. Of course, a lot of new tasks get added, but the base remains the same, right? They just get accustomed to everything, to using the laptop, to opening Excel sheets, to making PowerPoints. They get so accustomed that this is the point of time where they can actually utilize this. How can they do that? Give yourself 10 just make a list of the tasks that you have. Give yourself time for each task, focus on the time. As soon as the timer is up, move to the second task. What will this help you do is that you will be able to complete all 10 tasks by the end of that day, because you are giving yourself constant pressure of finishing that task in that given time slot. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, that this technique might not work for everybody because it can have its own repercussions of you not being the most productive, right? Or you not delivering absolutely 100% accurate tasks. So then the most common time management technique that we can follow is Eisenhower matrix. Now, what is it? If you see, there are tables here: urgent, not urgent, important, not important, right? So we make this axis for ourselves. Then what we do? It says do it, schedule it, delegate it, delete it. That's the order, okay? So do it. Now, you will make 4 chunks or 4 boxes for your daily tasks, okay, for yourself. Now, in that first box, you will mention the tasks which you have to complete immediately. For example, there's something you're working on, and 2 of the projects have the deadline today itself, while 2 of them have it day after tomorrow. So, under the do it list, you will have the tasks that you have to finish today, right? So, that's urgent, right? That's urgent and important, right? So that's the tasks which usually have clear deadlines and you have to finish them. Here are a few examples: finishing a client project, submitting a draft article, responding to some emails, right? There might be some emails that you have to respond to. Now, the second part is schedule it. Now, this part is important, but it's not urgent. Why is it not urgent? Because it does not have an immediate deadline, right? So, activities that do not have a set deadline, but they bring you closer to your goals, it's easy to procrastinate on them. So, strategic planning, professional development, networking, exercise, right? So, when it comes to, let's take the example of networking, that's something that you've told yourself you have to do. It's important, but it's not urgent. If you don't do it today, you can do it tomorrow. So, whenever you find the right time, you do it, right? The third part is delegated, which means it's not important, but it's urgent. So things that need to be done but don't require your specific skills, right? For example, uploading blog posts, scheduling, responding to some emails, meal prep. So you might not have to directly get into these tasks. Or if you're at a senior position, what you can do is you usually delegate work, right? You know that this particular work is urgent, but it's not important. Not important from your perspective, which means that even if you're a manager, you know that these are the tasks that your subordinates can also do, right? So you can delegate it to them. Then comes delete it, which means these are some distractions that can, affect your daily productivity. So you delete them from your schedule so that you are able to focus on the first three parameters, which is do it, schedule it, and delegate it. So some examples are social media, watching TV, video games, right? So, in order to plan your day and your daily tasks in your work life, this works for personal life as well. In the most efficient manner, you can follow the Eisenhower matrix. You can finish the urgent tasks first, schedule some for later, delegate some that don't require direct input, and delete the ones which might cause a distraction. Or else you can just go forward with the time box technique, right? So, when it comes to questions like how do you stay organized while having multiple tasks, you choose the technique that you want to go forward with. But honestly, mentioning techniques like these leaves a really great impression on the interviewer because it shows that you're a very organized person, you're a very serious person who knows about all of this stuff. And these are some techniques, you're giving them real life techniques and examples of how you would like to manage your tasks, right? So that's really great. That's something that you can do. So, yeah, that's about it. So, again, any questions, please go ahead. Now, I'm going to stop right here. We can do a few mock interviews also after this, but I would really urge you all to ask any kind of questions that you might have. Okay. I have discussed a lot of interview FAQs with you all. Let's just go through it once very quickly from the beginning. So, we did discuss the preparation essentials for an interview. Okay. I'll just go through the slides, okay, one by one. If there's any slide that you want me to talk on again, or if you missed it, or if you missed a previous session, just type it out and I will get back to it again. Okay. So I'll just skim through it once and then you can let me know in the comments, in the chat. So, preparation essentials for an interview, we discussed. Then we discussed what are the essentials during an interview, right? Then we discussed interview FAQs. Now we have discussed tell me something about yourself, strengths, weaknesses, why should we hire you? Do you have any questions? How do you handle pressure? Tell me about a time when you made a mistake. So, how do you handle pressure? Tell me about a time when you made a mistake and tell me about an achievement you're proud of. These all come under STAR method. So, we've done that. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? We've done that. Why is there an employment gap in your resume? We've done that. So I've covered all of these questions and I've also covered a few other questions that you did ask on chat earlier. But if you have any confusions, if you want me to repeat, the explanations of any of these questions, you can let me know how to handle pressure. Okay, I'll come to this. It's in the next slide itself. Okay, not next to next. So list of questions you can ask an interviewer. We discussed that, an interviewer will usually always ask you towards the end that do you have any questions, so to leave an impression that you are interested, intrigued, and you're smart and you're thoughtful, you can ask these questions. Warm up exercises, we discussed how you can do some warm up exercises to prepare well, to make sure your communication is great during an interview. How to tackle questions you don't know answers to, we've discussed this as well. Then comes what has been your greatest personal achievement, which is something we discussed using the STAR method. So, how to handle pressure, Akanksha, is something again which can be handled through the same method. Okay, let me give an example right here. So, we discussed STAR method. Okay, I talked about it right now as well. It refers to situation, task, action, and results. So basically, when you have any behavioral questions, which might be, giving you a situation where you have to answer in a manner, very politely ask the interviewer to give you a minute to think about it if you don't have any stories ready. Okay. What you have to do is you have to think of a story or come up with a story, and you have to follow the STAR method to frame that story so that it's efficient and effective. Now, if it comes to how to handle pressure, if you're a fresher, think about a time that you did handle pressure in your college days. We all handled pressure in our college days, right? It could be assignment, deadlines, examinations, some extracurriculars, or if you have some kind of experience, you can take an example from your work life experience. Now, since I already discussed this example 5 or 10 minutes back, I'll come back to it. For example, let's take the situation of you being a part of the MUN committee of your college, which had organized an MUN. The anchor had to back off last moment due to some medical emergency, and you were put on the spot where you had to create the script. Okay, you don't even have the script. Let's just assume that that person got so busy who couldn't turn up that the script was also with them and you didn't even have a copy. Now you have just 1.5 hour before the actual event. You have to write the script, right? You have to make sure that you practice well the way you're going to conduct the session, the way you're going to speak to people, the way you're going to connect with your audience, right? So you have to think all of that. You just have hardly 1.5 hour to prepare all of that, and you had to do it, right? So what you can do is, if there's a question like how to handle pressure situation, what would it be? That there was an event in my college, and it was a grand event, a national level event. A lot of people from different colleges had come in, and the anchor had to back off last moment, and I was put in the spot. Now, the task was that I had to come up with the script, prepare it well, practice it well, all of it in the next 1.5 hour. The action that I took was that I gave myself different time. Maybe I used the time box technique, and because I had 1.5 hour, I told myself that the first 30 minutes I'm going to write the script. So when I decide to do that, I delete all the distractions that I might have. I'll just sit down and quickly create the script in 30 minutes. The next 30 minutes I'm going to practice, and the next 30 minutes I'm going to make sure that I'm well groomed, well prepared, and I might do some last moment stage practices, right? So that's the action I want to I that's the task that I knew that I had to do. The action was, again, this is the action that we discussed, and then the result was that I was able to very efficiently um conduct the event, and it was a huge success, right? So I am just giving you a very basic example. You can think of different examples from your college, from your work life, right, that you can give in, and that's how you answer questions like what has been your greatest personal achievement, or how do you handle pressure. Okay, so mm, just give me 1 second. Excuse me. Okay. So now the next question is, why is there an employment gap in your resume? Please repeat that question. Okay, let's discuss that once again. Okay. So it's very important, first of all, for you to be honest when you're answering that question. Okay. Because if you're not being honest, it can lead to a spiral of lies. The point is, you have to be honest and you have to give in relevant examples. Okay. Now, if you see here, I had placed in some gap in my resume examples over here. It could be 3 factors that I boiled it down to: redundancy, education, and personal issues. Okay. Now, let's just look at these examples on how you should tackle them. So, for redundancy, the things that you shouldn't say is something like, I probably could have made more of the position and wish I'd put in more effort. This usually happens when there's a lot of firing happening or a lot of layoffs are happening, which has happened in the past few years, right? So if you think you're being laid off or there's any other problem due to which you lost your job, please don't, question yourself. Don't question your self-esteem or your capabilities, because that will leave an impression that you're not confident and you might not even confidently perform in this organization. So you could instead say something like, my company was in the process of making cutbacks, and unfortunately, I was a newer team member. However, I really learned a lot from this role and I'm proud that I made an impact. Again, just sharing a few examples. For education, I didn't know what else to do, so I thought I'll do another course. This leaves a very bad impression, making them think that you're not very sure, you're not a person who comes up with a plan or who wants to follow a plan, right? So instead of doing that, you have to say something like, I felt I had more to learn about my industry. By improving my foundation of my knowledge, I believe I'm able to perform well, right? Then comes personal issues. If you really had a personal issue or a medical issue, you don't say, I had some personal issues that I can't discuss, because, a lot of people could say that, and that doesn't really always make sense, or it does not really add substance. So you can say something like, okay, there's an issue over here. Yeah, I'm sorry, there's a misprint over here. So if there's a question like this on personal issues, you don't say something like, I had some personal issues that I can't discuss. You would probably just mention in very brief that I had some medical issues or some medical commitments towards my family or towards myself. But the only problem was, I'll just take an example, okay? For example, I have a back issue, okay, a serious back issue, some medical issue, and I was not able to um perform a lot, or I was not able to do regular work because of that. So I can say something like, I had a serious medical issue pertaining to my back, due to which I was recommended bed rest. But whenever the moment I started recovering, I took that time to research, read about the industry standards, grow my knowledge about the industry standards. And I also took up some online courses to make sure that I'm well aligned and I am not lacking behind, so that I am able to make an impact and contribute in the best way possible that I can to your organization. So these are the three examples that you can actually discuss depending on your situation. If you took an education break, it was due to redundancy or your personal issues. Okay. Um, what else do we have? What if I have no time to prepare and my manager stands on my head to prepare something which I have no experience of? How should I handle pressure in such situations? Please give me 1 second. There's nobody at home and the bell. I'm extremely sorry about that. Um, okay, Akanksha, you've said something like, what if I have no time to prepare and my manager stands on my head to prepare something which I have no such experience of? How should I handle pressure in such a situation? Okay. I'm not sure this question is very correct or precise, to be very honest. But see, the thing is that you might get some last moment tasks, right, by your manager or your colleagues that, Hanspreet, you have to do this right now. But you need to understand that when you get into that situation, they will probably know what all you can handle and what all you can't. If you're a fresher, they won't literally give you a task that they know that you're not skilled at, right? And if they do so, right, maybe they're also under pressure, they don't realize, they just want to get the work done and they come and tell you. That's when you need to have good interpersonal skills and good communication skills to be able to calmly have a word with your manager, tell them that you're not really equipped or well versed with what task they have given you to do. So if they could take a few minutes to explain you the task in detail, or if they could probably reassign it to somebody who has more experience, that would be really helpful. Because at the end of the day, you can't just beat around the bush and do something just because they told you and you were under pressure, right? You have to be very honest, because at the end of the day, it's all about the company's interest, the client's interest. So if you need clarity, talk to them calmly, ask them for clarity. If not, you can tell them that, this is really something which is out of my league, and I have not really worked upon such things before. I don't want things to mess up. So I would request you to reassign it to somebody who has more relevant experience. And if you have some suggestions for people or recommendations, give it out to your manager to make their process easier. Okay. Okay, we've discussed this also. The question, why have you decided to change a career? So again, it all depends upon you. Firstly, you have to know why you want to change your career, right? Now, I always keep giving in my own example because I did make a career switch, some time back. I was working in the L&D industry as an instructional designer, and then I moved into the training industry, right? So when I figured out, the moment you figure out why you want to, the moment you figure out that you want to change your career, that's the time you have to start thinking and pondering and introspecting why you have to change that career. Maybe because you have a passion for some other thing which you're not, able to fulfill over here. Once you figure that out, do research, be well read and try to find out what all is it that you can upskill yourself on, work yourself with, so that you are able to gain relevant substance, skills, courses, certifications, and experience to be able to make a career switch. Once you do that, take the next 6 to 8 months to upskill yourself, to find out your niche, to make sure that you are able to um probably blend in your things in your resume in a manner that you are able to understand, or that the recruiter will probably consider these things, and this will help you change your career path. So try to figure that all out. Try to make sure, or try to think from a perspective on how you can better your resume by adding relevant skills, relevant courses that you need to make a career switch. Once you do that, it's not going to be difficult. And if they ask you that question, right, so, whatever this process that you followed, you just have to narrate a story to them in a very brief manner. That, sir or ma'am, I earlier was working in this field. I was not very passionate about that particular field, and I really wanted to do something that makes me happy. Along this, in between this whole process, I realized that this is something I'm really good at, and I wanted to convert that into a career choice. So, I started researching, I started reading, I started watching videos. Then I understood that what all are the skills that I need to build upon. So I took the last few months to do these courses and to build upon these skills or to upskill myself. And that's why I feel that I really wanted to change my career. What should be the length of my CV? Can I summarize my CV into a resume of 1 page? Okay. Excuse me. Um, so again, I'm a little confused on what you're trying to ask, because what we discussed was resume building. I have talked about the fact that what we send out to apply to companies is called a resume. A CV, which is a curriculum vitae, is usually a longer thing, and that's usually used for the academic purposes. If you're going for PhD, or if you have some research work to describe all of that in detail, is when you have your CV. Your resume length should be about 450 words. Again, as freshers or as somebody who has very little experience, I would suggest to not extend it to over, or spill it over to over more than 1 page. And if you have a lot of experience, you can spill it over to 2 pages, but nothing more than that. Okay. Okay. So then today we discussed about grooming etiquette. We also discussed why should we hire you, and we discussed the samples. We discussed on how do you stay organized. And that's all I had. So if you have any more questions, put it in the chat box. We have about 10 more minutes. I can take it up, right? And if not, then maybe if some of you would want to volunteer. I know last time I think 2 people wanted to, but we couldn't take up their mock interviews. So if anybody's interested, just volunteer, and I would request ma'am to, you know, put them into the panelist section so that we can do a mock interview with them. Okay, in the meanwhile, unless you all figure out or you mention, um, if you would want to volunteer or not, there's another thing, right? So, one second, Adar. Okay, there are more questions coming in. So let's just tackle this for now, then, I guess. So, what's the first question that we have? How can we handle salary negotiation? Cool. So, when it comes to salary negotiation, it depends. The first thing is that if the job description already mentions a particular salary pack, usually the companies are not up for negotiation. You can still ask that during the interview. Again, there's one more tip. Don't bring up the salary discussion in between the interviewer. Wait for the interviewer to do that. If they don't, you can ask that towards the end, but don't do it in the beginning. If they say that they have a fixed salary structure, okay, which they've already mentioned, there's no use negotiating, because then when the companies have a fixed salary structure, they don't really go in for negotiations, and it can just get a little irritable for the interviewer because there's nothing they can do about it. But if you want to do that, I call it the reverse Uno technique. Okay. So turn the question to the recruiter. Okay. If they ask you what are your salary expectations, just say something like, I couldn't see a salary range mentioned in the job description. Is it possible for you to share a band with me? So when you're telling them to share a band with you, for example, they say 6 to 8 LPA or 8 to 10 LPA, it becomes a little easier for you to know or to figure out what your expectations should be. Because if you straight away jump into an answer and you show your desperation by saying something like, I would be okay with 5 LPA, right? But they are actually offering you about 6 to 8. So then you're losing on, right? Because they will obviously be happy to settle you in for less, right? So reverse Uno really works. Try to turn in the question to them, but try to get a salary band from them and then try to answer that question. And if not that, you could say something like, I am flexible with the salary range, but I would like to be fairly compensated. Now, you can say all of this once your research is strong. So I mentioned the last time that, you should go in you should go in for questions, or you should go in for research on websites like Glassdoor, okay, because they give you a lot of insights on what exactly is the general compensation packages for people of your position in that organization or in general in the industry. So if for an instructional designer I have to see, I can just go in and Google and find out what is the general pay range for a fresher for an instructional designer, right? So when you know a salary range in your head because you have researched well, you can tell them that you're open to negotiations, but you would like to be fairly compensated. And if they could give you a number, that's great. If they don't, then you can tell them that according to the salaries, according to the industry standards, this is the range, and I think I would expect somewhere along this line. That's how you can say that. Okay. If you think that yeah, again, coming back to, if you think that you're being pushed to discuss it first, you can say, I'd be happy to share my salary expectations. But first, could you tell me more about the company's benefits, the opportunities, and the growth opportunities and the benefit packages? So, this gives you a better insight into, once you know that what are some other packages or what are some other compensation benefits or health benefits that the company is providing you, you can give them a band according to that. So you're trying to turn the question again on them to try to understand the company and what all other things it offers except for a salary, so that you can make a fair amount of pointer, right? So just a few things that you should keep in mind is that you should know what your USP is before you're negotiating. If you're underconfident and you're trying to negotiate as a fresher, it can turn against you, because you have to prove them that you have the right skills and you've, really moved forward and worked hard towards reaching this stage in order to be able to making this negotiation in the salary. Okay. So then we have one more question on strengths and weaknesses. So we don't have any mock volunteers today. Okay. So what is your weakness in your interview? Again, we've discussed this last time, but let me just briefly come back to it. Um, I discussed this briefly in the beginning of today's session also by mentioning that I will again come to my same point on going through the job description thoroughly. Why? When we talk about weaknesses, right? You have to make sure that your weakness is a weakness which is not core to your job requirement. When I say that, the best example that I have is that if I am applying for the job of a trainer, I cannot say communication is my weakness, right? Because it doesn't make sense. It becomes ironic in a manner that if I want to become a trainer, the whole job is based on me communicating, right? And if I'm saying that's my weakness, that just cancels me out then and there, right? So once you go through the job description thoroughly, find out the skills and the strengths that they're looking for, and then figure out a weakness which probably is not from that list. And if it's a weakness, try to, you know, uh, try to recall it or try to mention it like a challenge. So again, when you're answering, try calling it a challenge instead of a weakness, because you want to give them an impression that this is a challenge you face. It's not a weakness you have. It's a challenge you face, and it's a weakness or a challenge that you think can be worked upon, right? Because if you feel that you're not really great at negotiation, okay, let's just take an example, but negotiation is not really core to your job requirement, it might come in sometimes, they might need you to have that skills sometimes, right? So if that happens, you can say that, one challenge I face is with my negotiation skills, but I have been reading and watching a lot of videos on it, and I believe that if I get the right amount of exposure and experience, I will be able to overcome that challenge. Okay, so that's how you deal with the question of what are your weaknesses. When it comes to strengths, again, don't go for something cliche like I'm very hardworking and I'm very dedicated. So again, go through the job description, find the skills that they're looking for. Again, if you're a trainer, you can say interpersonal skills or communication skills. Again, just giving an example, and make that the core strength. Find out what is the core strength or one or two strengths that the company really needs for you to have in that organization, and talk around that on how you have upskilled yourself into building that strength, and how that is actually one of your core strengths that you think will be really useful in that particular organization. Again, for weakness, one more example I could think of was, for example, you're applying for the job of an instructional designer. Now you know how to use Canva, okay, but you don't know how to use some advanced tools. But again, that's not something that's really expected out of you, because when it comes to design tools, that's something they will expect out of a graphic designer. With an instructional designer, they may want you to sometimes work around these things. So you can say something like, although I am really good with Canva and I understand the basics of designing, I am not really well equipped with other platforms, but if required, I am willing to learn those skills, hands on the job, and upskill myself on the same. So yeah, that's about it. um Time's also up, and nobody volunteered for the mock interview as well. So if there's nothing else, um I think we can end the session. If there's something else, I can take up one last question maybe. And if nothing, I think we're good to go. This was the last session. I would like to reiterate something which I said during my first session as well, and I can, one second, I can put it here also in the chat box. So I have an Instagram page. I'm an education content creator as well. If you go on my page, you will see multiple interview FAQs that I have tackled with. It can be really helpful for you if you want to keep revisiting whatever I talk about, or just get a little insights on what it is. And I will keep posting more in the future as well. So you can stay updated through that. I have one more question. How do you answer about education gap in your resume? We just discussed this very briefly. Let's just look at this. So when it comes to education, just give me one second. When it comes to education, I didn't know what else to do, so I thought I'll do another course. Again, doesn't work for you. You have to make sure that you tell them that you know what you're doing, because it shows that you have a future goal and plan. I felt I had more to learn about my industry. By improving my foundation of knowledge, I believe I'm more capable than ever to apply for myself. The question, what is your weakness? Okay, I can't see that question anymore. How do you answer about education gap? Okay, yeah. So, 1 second. Education gap, as in, can you just give me one quick insight into it? What do you mean by education gap here? Does that mean that you
They
don't
mean
take
drop year. They mean drop year.
drop year? Okay. Yeah, so again, it comes back to the same answer that I was just discussing. If you took a drop year, there must be a reason, right? Redundancy would not come in this section because, again, you are still a student, right? You can either mention education or personal issues. If there was a personal or a medical issue that you were dealing with, you have to answer in the way that I just talked about, right? You can ignore the slide over here because there's some issue there. But I talked about how you can actually specifically mention very briefly in a gist that you had some serious medical issue, and once you recovered you did take up some courses, right? So that's something that can help. And when it comes to education, if usually people take a drop year to prepare for competitive exams, right? So you can mention that, that does not matter at all. You can say that I was preparing for some competitive exams, however, during this period I realized that I had a change of plans of my goals, and I figured out what I really wanted to do. So I started working towards that. I did a few courses, I did a few online courses, and I believe that now I'm well equipped for that particular field, and I would like to study further in that field, or and that's the reason I took a gap year. Now, if you take a 5, 6 years of drop year, that's a little tricky, to be very honest, because it's very difficult to justify you if you have, that sort of a gap year. But again, it's all about how you can make it count. Now, I'm pretty sure if you took a 5, 6 years of, gap year, you must have done something in those 5, 6 years, right? So try to find the best of both worlds. Try to find out whatever you did, what are the courses that you did. You probably did some online courses, how you upskilled yourself, if you did some part-time jobs, some internships, anything that you did for that matter. You ultimately, it all boils down to you being able to sell yourself. If you think that you are that smart and you are that capable of making into that job despite that gap year, because you've worked on certain skills, there's nothing like it. You can go ahead and make them believe that. So it's all about how you make them believe that. I am not going with very particular examples over here because for everybody the reasons are different, right? Now I don't know why would you take a 5, 6 year gap, or why would somebody take a 6 month gap, right? So that is all a very personalized and a tailor-made approach that you have. You know your issue better. I have given you a few instances on how you can tackle that. Now you have to find out how you can make the best of it, and you can actually um, frame an answer which is convincing enough for them to believe in you. Okay. So is that it? Can we end today's session? Okay, great. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. I hope all the 4 sessions were pretty helpful to you all. And so yeah, I hope all the sessions were pretty helpful. And if you need any further help, you can just, if like, you can let us know, and we can come back with something else. This is There's just this feedback form that you can fill in. I don't know if you'll get it later as well, but this came in at the end of every session. So if you want, you can scan it, you can do it right now, and yeah, you'll be good to go.